give a lecture, he can give a khutbah, he can do all these marriage counsel. I don't want Abu Usamah to take my position and my status. He's better than me, he looks better than me, he's cooler than me. I have to get rid of Abu Usamah. This is a reality. So how can I get rid of him? I can't beat him in a fist fight.
Preach! Can't beat him in a fist fight.
What am I going to do? I'm going to do what now? I'm going to find a way to
assassinate his character.
Get rid of him. He said this, he did this, what I cut, what I paste, he didn't mean it, he explained it. However I get rid of it, that's what I'm going to do. When I call up the sheikh, yeah sheikh, listen carefully, we have someone, not a graduate, not an imam of a community, not a leader, not someone that took this hole in the wall masjid and turned it into a major center. But we have someone who's called, Yud'a, Yusamma, some majhul, ignorant guy, some nobody. We have someone who says this, who says kada, who says kada, who says kada. He's a Shia when it comes to the Sahaba. He's a Qadri when it comes to the predestiny. He's a Murjit when it comes to Iman. When it comes to the rulers, he's a Khawarij. Every bid'ah is in him.
This is real talk. That is real talk.
So the scholar, like we said, the accountability, he's either going to give a general answer. I don't know who this person is. If what you're saying is true, then that's wrong, so on and so forth. Stay away from him. Who is the person? Allahu A'lam what the scholars want to say. The point is that there are many reasons, there are many causes. From them is people being afraid, people being inferior, people being jealous, and people being envious. They mention here about being on a pedestal and you never thought, that wasn't how I came up. People always envied me. I wasn't a deviant back then, but it was always tension because I was so young. And the brothers that would shake my hand, we would sit, drink tea together, people that would talk about me behind my back. So the point is that in 2002, and I'm going to leave you with this, I was sitting in the Prophet's Masjid with Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. And they asked him a question, and perhaps the name of the person most of us can't even pronounce. They said, yeah, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad is the grandfather of Medina. He's the teacher of all of the scholars of Medina. Sheikh Rabi himself studied with him for 2 years. They asked Sheikh Abdul Muhsin, this is 2002 now. Yeah, Sheikh, what about the tabdir of Abu Hassan al-Halabi, Abu Hassan Ma'rabi, so on and so forth. The Sheikh didn't say Sheikh Rabi is right, Sheikh Rabi is this, Sheikh Rabi is a great, he didn't say any of that. He says all of these issues are based off of, he says, ahwaf and nufus. He says personal beefs and grievances. Now, you're shaking your head and saying, nah, now. In 2002, I wasn't.
You wouldn't have agreed with that at all.
I didn't disrespect the Sheikh. I'm like, man, how you gonna say that, Sheikh? That is all personal. That is all personal. 15 years later, only Allah knows what became clear, what became manifest. Their brothers in the crowd that you can ask that saw the gradual development, and those words were clear as day. And the same thing has happened and is happening in America. The only reason why you were looking for the mistakes of Shadid, if he did make a mistake, maybe he did make a mistake, maybe. The only reason why you were looking for them is because you're jealous. The only reason why you're looking to find what Abu Usamah said is because you're insecure and inferior, you're afraid Abu Usamah is better than you and he's going to take your power and your authority. And then comes the game, so on and so forth. So this is in brief, this is not everything. The most important thing that I want to give you guys is just look at what happened. Abu Usamah mentioned about the scholars from Jordan, Abu Usamah, Ali Halabi, Musa Nasser, Hussein Awaisha, Usama Kusi from Egypt, QSS, they came to America, came to Canada. What happened to those scholars? They became deviants. Bilal Phillips, this one, that one, burn his books, get rid of his tapes. You accepted Islam, you made tarbiyah, you grew your beard, you put on hijab, you left kufr, you left shirk, you came to the deen, now get rid of all of his books. And then another scholar comes, he's a deviant now. And then this one comes from Bahrain, and this one, and this one, and that one. How long are you going to be stupid? How long are you going to see that it's a big game and it's a big joke? And you're the victim of it. You're on the shortest end of the stick. You can't make that consistent upon someone teaching you, benefiting your soul, and then burn all of his books. So you're held accountable as well. That's in brief. Allahu A'lam.
Allahu Akbar. Takbir. MashaAllah. Tabarakallah. If we didn't say anything else tonight, you have cut kufitu. You have been sufficed. Abu Usamah, you wanted to say something? Okay. All right, so we'll make this my last question. And like, you guys, you get it now? Is it clear to you now? Is it clear? I'm hoping that it's clear. This is the benefit of asking questions. Asking questions is actually a form of teaching, right? In the hadith of Jibreel, who was the teacher? The Prophet ﷺ or Jibreel? Jibreel. And Jibreel never gave anything more than a question. The Prophet ﷺ told Umar, "Atadri min as-sa'il?" Do you know who the questioner was? Umar said, "Wallahu wa rasuluhu a'lam." Allah and His Messenger knows best. He said, "Hada Jibreel atakum yu'allimukum umur dinikum." That was Jibreel who came to teach you your religion. Jibreel never said anything except to ask a question. أخبرني عن الإسلام, أخبرني عن الإيمان, وأخبرني عن الإحسان. Tell me about Islam, tell me about Iman, and tell me about Ihsan. And because of that, the Prophet ﷺ called Jibreel the teacher. So what we are doing right now, class is in session. Make no mistake about that. My last question, there's actually two more. Hopefully we can get through this, inshallah. What should Islamic communities expect from students of knowledge upon their graduation and repatriation, which means to return back to their country of origin? And how have the previous expectations, if there were any at all, of graduating students, have they been too low, such that many have come home and not contributed much with respect to changing the condition of our communities? So what should the expectation of Islamic communities be regarding students of knowledge who graduate and repatriate back to their communities? What should be our expectation? What should we expect from students of knowledge who return home? Should they grab a book, Usul al-Thalatha, and start saying, well, the Sheikh is saying here, or the Sheikh is saying here, and what the Sheikh means here? Is that what a student of knowledge should be doing? Because many of us don't know what our expectations of graduates, of students of knowledge should be. So we allow them to come home, come back into the communities, and they grab a small metin, they grab a small, text, and then off they go teaching, and we say, oh, we got a student of knowledge in our community, and his presence is no different than his absence. Wujuduhu ka'adamihi. His presence is no more beneficial than his absence. That's the question, inshallah ta'ala.
This brother is trying to get your attention for a long time.
He has to change. You got to change go ahead. We ran our 80 minutes, so we're on our second set of 80 minutes. No, alhamdulillah. Imam Ahmed rahimahullah ta'ala said that when Abu Zur'a used to pass through Khurasan, kunna natajannab qiyamul layl. He said when Abu Zur'a, the great scholar, would pass through Khurasan, through the area of Iraq, we wouldn't even pray tahajjud because we would benefit from him for the time that he was with us. So if you have regular plans for the night, you here for the rest of the day. Abu Zur'a is here. So that's the question, inshallah ta'ala, and I'll leave it to the imams and students to answer that.
And let me begin by saying that I see a lot of people in the crowd when I came in who are older, some older than me, alhamdulillah. And based upon what my beloved brother Mufti mentioned about the people of 2017 being a different breed, that is true. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is that there always has to be this process of passing off the baton. Has to be. If you don't have that in your community, there's a problem. And everybody has it. We're the few people, we're probably the only species of people, we don't have that thing of even respecting our elders. We have disrespect for elders. So when Bilal Phillips was on the scene, he was like my elder, and Bilal Phillips was refuting the Ansarullah cult. He was writing, he was a prolific writer. That book, Kitab al-Tawheed, things that he did, and he was spreading the Sunnah. He was spreading the Sunnah, but yet he turned into something that was unfair and unjust. I say that to say a lot of these brothers, and other these brothers, even some from the other side, one thing that I always tried to do was to give these brothers love, always, always. I remember there was some drama and some beef between one of the famous imams in East Orange, New Jersey, Abu Usamah. We had some problems with a couple of brothers back then, before it really got intense. I would give a lecture in East Orange, New Jersey, and in front of the people, I would say, so-and-so is a good student. You brothers should try to be like so-and-so and so-and-so. I didn't know Mufti that well. I knew this one brother on the other side. And I used to say that because I wasn't afraid of the ramifications of that, and I wanted to always be a person who was trying to get along with the brothers. And I didn't think that all the drama was warranted, but it became what it has become. But I'm happy to say, once again, from the ni'mah of Allah, I never was one of those people who had like this thing about the up-and-coming brothers or something to be feared, because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Which brings us right into this issue of what should we expect from people who graduate in the du'at and all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of stuff can be said about that, but I think we have to be realistic first and foremost. We have to be realistic. We have to be realistic in understanding that everybody is not a speaker. Even from the ulama, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, rahmatullahi alayhi, he wasn't the best orator. His classes were beneficial. But when he gave a khutbah, he wasn't the type of person who, for me personally, would inspire me like people who were lesser than him in degrees, because that wasn't his forte in terms of inspiring me anyway. So not everybody is going to be a khatib, not everybody is going to be a speaker. He may be a researcher. The other one may be doing something that is going to be more in line with his skill set. And that's an ayat of the Quran. وَلِكُلٍّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Everybody has his path that he's been put on. So follow your path. Follow your path. So this brother, he has the Mardiyah show. This brother over here, he's doing whatever he's doing. You're the mu'adhin. You're the cat who always is fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. You're the elder dude of the community. And you over there, you're the security and on and on. Just get in where you fit in and do your thing. So to think that every student that comes back, he's qualified or competent to even be an imam, that's not true. I knew students from America. They got caught smoking weed in Medina. Dude came back and he was smoking weed in Medina from Chicago. He got kicked out. That's not for you now to go back. That's not for you to go and look for who's studying Medina from Chicago. No, but I know worse than that. I know some students who didn't get up for Salat. They didn't get up for Fajr. I knew people like that. They didn't get up for Salat al-Fajr. So my point is, to be unrealistic and to think that everyone who graduates, that is a stamp that this person is qualified to give fatwas, qualified to, no. You have to look and identify what's the reality of the person's skill set. Another issue in terms of the reality of the situation and knowing where everybody, what his job is and where we fit in. This thing is a double-edged sword, because on one hand, having the job as the imam or an imam, someone up here on the panel said that the imam is underpaid and he's overworked. Underpaid and he's overworked. And that's a reality for some people. And before I forget, because this just came to my mind, because someone said it, I think we have to pay homage right now. Some of you were laughing with loud voices, and I'm thinking, is this appropriate or not appropriate? Because when I came into the room, people were giving me love, and Ali Saber bumped into me like the Negro that he is from Detroit. He bumped into me, and I looked around thinking that the other side were here. He was just joking with me. But when I came in, I realized I was disturbing the Dars of Mufti. I realized that, I was sensitive to that. Because when I'm teaching, I don't want people passing out water like this brother just did. I don't want people eating cookies and stuff. That gets into my central nervous system, and while teaching, I'll go off. Not crazy, but because that's from the etiquettes. The companions used to sit and they said, if a bird landed on their shoulder, that bird, that's how still they were. So the majlis, it has and it requires a level of adab. So I apologize to him for that. I was sensitive to the laughing that was going on. But I said, nah, in the context of what this is all about, this is cool and this is our people, in my opinion, which brought this issue that I got to bring to the table right now, because we'd be remiss if we close this out without saying this. When our brother Abu Abdul Razak Tahir Wyatt got accepted to have a chair in the Prophet's Mosque, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I went on record to publicly say, I support that. Not only do I support that, but I said, Tahir is a lesson and an ayat from the ayat of Allah for our children. Like my little nephews who came up to me from Cincinnati, from Ohio, these little shorties that's up in the spot. Tahir White proved to these kids, yo, the sky is the limit by the Lord of the Kaaba, inshallah. So I think we have to go on record publicly saying and acknowledging amongst ourselves, that brother got his PhD and he did very well. He did exceptionally well. But in doing well, we gotta be realistic. Does that mean he's Shaykh al-Islam when he comes back to this joint? Does it mean that he's Shaykh al-Islam? And this thing about loving ourselves, for someone to conflate being proud to be African American, to someone to conflate that and confuse that with you being racist. You know, you could be a racist, but you have to make it clear. I never believed, like some of the people who preceded us to Islam from Jamaat Tabligh, they started speaking, and I'm not bashing you if that's your flex. People from Jamaat Tabligh were speaking with a Pakistani accent, brother. And I never believed that I had to do that. So now that that brother has accomplished what he accomplished, it's a responsibility. Let's take that brother as the apex in terms of the question. We have to figure out, based upon his past, where he's at, where he's going, where he's going to be, whatever community he comes to. Maybe he has to go to a community that unfortunately our reality may be we can't afford that dude. Because we've been munching for 20 years, we can't afford him. But whatever the reality is, he goes to one of them Desi communities, Pakistani brothers or something like that, just so that he could feed his family. I ain't hating him for that. I ain't against that. He gotta take care of his family. But still, we're gonna try to utilize that brother to help our situation to the best of our ability. But for us to hate on him because he went there, part of the issue is part of our problem, what has happened all of these last 20 years. So in terms of what's the responsibility, how should we be looking at this situation? I think at the top of the list, we just have to be realistic about the people who go out, go over and study, and coming back, and then see what needs to be done. To look at the person, we have that Mahdi Minhaj, the Mahdi and Muntazir. We're waiting for the Mahdi to come and solve all of the problems. Because when the Mahdi comes back, all of this drama in the earth, Trump, Iraq, all of this drama, he's going to fill the earth with justice, just as it has been filled with all of this oppression. So we're going to wait for the student to come back and he has all the answers. That's crazy. That's insane. That's insanity. He is not physically, mentally, spiritually capable of doing all of that. He has his niche, he's responsible for it, and we have to acknowledge that. Which brings me to the end of what I have to say in this regard. Thus, the light is shed upon the importance of unity. Unity. And unity is not necessarily us being together like this in one room all again, but it's him doing his job and not conflicting with mine, and him doing his job and not conflicting with his, because in reality all of our jobs are the same, but no single man can be on every ship that's leaving the dock. It's impossible. It's impossible. So in closing, Abu Zubair had mentioned about this thing about loving the spotlight and hating and jealousy. You guys were laughing, but it's as real gets. It's the culture that we're coming in, the hip-hop culture. And with these millenniums, our kids, it even becomes even more stamped in their psyche. I think everybody here heard of Sufyan al-Thawri, one of the 10 people considered Amir al-Mu'mineen in Hadith. This man is on another level, at his own madhab. He said that the biggest jihad that he had to make was jihad against that thing of people looking at him, coming from all over the world to meet this man. And if that's the case with him, what do you think is the case with people like us? Who sometimes we didn't always have tarbiyah, we didn't always have that upbringing where, it's going to be a bigger possibility. So it is an issue that is definitely there. So I would say, we just have to be realistic as it relates to people who are coming back. Don't expect too much, what's beyond people's ability. And at the same time, don't think like in our audience right now, our brothers, we have sisters who are teachers, Islamic teachers, getting only a fraction of the salary that non-Muslims are getting for various reasons. Is it realistic to expect a guy, a girl, a lady, a man, to work in a school for peanuts and they have to do all of that jihad of dealing with those kids? It's just not right.
So you're saying that the expectation shouldn't be too high and shouldn't be too low.
It should be realistic.
Realistic.
Just it should be realistic.
Okay. Anyone else want to chime in on that? The expectation of the student when he graduates and repatriates back into his community, what should be the expectation of the community? What should we expect of students when they graduate and come back home? Should there be an expectation? And if so, what should that expectation be?
Before we get into the expectation of the community, the student knowledge has to realize, and also the layman person, the member of the community, without imposing, but to realize, and sometimes brothers need reminders. You need a friendly reminder, is that before we get into what you owe us, what you have to do for your community, for your people, for your country, you owe the Islamic University of Medina. It's a debt that you have to repay to Qura. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, wherever you studied, they did not give you that scholarship. They did not pay thousands and thousands of dollars for your plane tickets, for your lodging, for your food, for this and for that, for your books, for you to just sit back and enjoy a comfortable, easy-going life. That is unfair and that is unrealistic. And if you read the mission statement of the Islamic University of Medina, you'll find this. So first and foremost, the responsibility that you have with regards to your own debt. You graduated from Medina, you have to pay back every single real that was given to you for free. And that real has to be paid back through your service, first and foremost for your own soul, and for your community, your family, your race, your country, whatever the case may be. That's first and foremost. And I think a lot of us, we lose focus of that. Some of us, we lose focus of that one way or another, that I'm indebted to this country and to this school, and I have to pay off this debt. And we all know what the Prophet ﷺ says about debts. The Prophet ﷺ says, يُغْفَرْ لِلشَّهِيدِ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ. He says that the martyr will be forgiven for every single sin. He who dies on the battlefield, fi sabilillah. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he then said, إِلَّا الدَّيْنِ سَارَنِي بِهِ جِبْرِيلُ آنِفًا. He says, except for one's debt, because Jibreel just told me. He just gave me this last piece. Everything is forgiven for the martyr except for a debt. So, Akhi, my fellow companion, my colleague, younger, older, for the aspiring brothers and sisters, if you're unwilling to pay off that debt, don't take the scholarship. As far as the actual question, what should the communities expect? Then as was mentioned, the expectations shouldn't be but so high. The expectations shouldn't be but so low, but the people should be excited. The people, they should look forward to someone who speaks their language, their tongue, who knows their culture, who eats their foods, who comes from their struggles, who has their social ills. And bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, by Allah's permission, is going to help them out. and is going to teach them and deal with the children, deal with the problems, the marriage, the divorce, the custody, and everything else. And there's some brothers, friends, and students, they come to me, or they say, I'm going to take you here, but they lock you and say, Mufti, you're a hostage. We want you to tell us this and explain this and give us that. Brothers call, brothers text, brothers WhatsApp. We want you to give what you've learned. There's nothing wrong with that, with expecting that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. And one should be greedy for knowledge. As the Prophet ﷺ said, "Men humani la yashba'an." He says there are two greedy people that will never ever be satisfied. Two types of greedy people that will never be satisfied. He said, "Men humun fi talab al-ilmi la yashba', wa men humun fi dunya la yashba'." He says the student of knowledge will never be satisfied. The one who's obsessed with ilm will never be satisfied. And the one who's obsessed with dunya will never ever be satisfied. So you being diligent, you being greedy, you being a little aggressive and grabbing a brother, come on, give us some classes, we want to travel with you, we want to learn with you, give us a story about Medina. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, before you expect something, what are you offering? And it don't necessarily have to be money. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial things. When you're overseas, and only Allah knows, you may be starving. This is not a joke. This is not to make you laugh. This is a reality. You may be hungry without no food in Medina or Yemen. No food. You may be cold at night. You don't have no covers to sleep on. Literally. You may have rats in your apartment. You may have your landlord knocking on the door. Where's the money? And you, shh, be quiet. He's knocking. I know you're in there. It's time to pay the rent. You don't have the rent. You backed up. You're studying, seeking. This is a reality. Your wife is complaining, taking the kids to the hospital, to the pharmacy. The baby is sick. You don't have the money to pay off the doctor. This is real. You're struggling. So before you expect and demand, what are you offering? It don't necessarily have to be money. Well, a lot of their brothers, they may call you, Assalamu alaikum, how you doing, Sheikh? We're proud of you. Keep up the good work. Keep studying. Don't worry, the struggle is going to be over soon. But in that time, that spiritual support, that pushes you a long way. So it don't always have to be money. When somebody comes back, you can support them, help them out. You can accompany them. Do anything that you can to contribute bid'inai ta'ala to make his stay as comfortable and welcome as possible bid'inai subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not so much about what you want to take, but it's about what you want to give. Everybody understand this now? The concept of supporting the imams, supporting the students of knowledge. If you don't, then who will? He's not getting no check from the government. He's not getting no stipend. There's no pension. He's not getting no type of proper salary. If you don't look after him, take care of him, protect him, make him feel wanted and welcome and respected, then he's going to go to another community that does provide that. So we have to be, it's like one hand washes the other. Take two hands to clap. The student of knowledge has to realize that he has to pay zakat on his wealth that he has amassed for the last 10 years. And the poor person also has a right as well, and he has a responsibility and a respect as well. So it goes hand in hand. But in general, in brief, the people, they have to make it crystal clear that we love you, we respect you, we honor your accomplishments, and we're waiting for you to get back to teach us our deen. It's their right to expect this. And it's the student of knowledge, it's his right to realize that he has to fulfill the legacy of the scholars that he learned from. You went to the sheikh, you called the sheikh, you bothered the sheikh when he was sitting with his family, and he answered your question. And the same must be done for our people. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah khair. Ali, what should be the expectation of the community for the student who graduates and comes back to his community, if there should be any expectation at all? And, how should the student fulfill that, and how should the community receive that?
It's a complex question. First, I want to ask Allah allow us all to die with all our debts being paid. Ameen.
And for the community to excuse the students of knowledge and imams, there's many imams in the crowd that I see, that are here. Let me just say before Ali, before you continue, forgive us. We're not perfect. I've said some things that were controversial. Mufti Abu Usamah, in the years that he has been involved in the communities, and unfortunately, sometimes we don't understand the power of our words, or how much influence we really have. Sometimes we underestimate our stardom, and we don't realize how much we impact lives of people, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. But you guys have to understand that we're human. Sometimes you elevate us to a level that is haram for you to do. You make it so like we're not even allowed to make mistakes. We're not even allowed to be human. And it's unfair. Because then that means that your expectations of us are unrealistic. It's almost like the Quraysh said about the Prophet, you know, how could he be a prophet? يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. He eats food and he walks in the marketplace. It's like, well, am I not a human being? Am I not supposed to eat food? Am I not supposed to go shopping in the marketplace? It's unrealistic. And Allah retorted with, we have never sent a messenger before, except كَانُوا يَأْكُلُونَ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشُونَ فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ, except they used to eat food and walk in the marketplace. The expectations sometimes that you guys have of people such as us in these positions are unrealistic and it's unfair. Sometimes you function with a sense of entitlement, as if we owe you. You send a message on a Facebook page, you send a message on a Twitter page, and then when they don't respond, it's like, oh, I sent you a message 2 days ago, you didn't respond. Well, I didn't know responding to you was a priority in my life. I'm sorry. I didn't know responding to you was a priority in my life. As if I don't have a wife or wives, I don't have children. You know how many children I have? I have 12 children. You understand? Like, you think about that for a minute. If I never responded to anybody's email, I'm justified. Because at least I'm taking care of mine, and I don't ever have to worry about you sending me an email about my kids. Inshallah. Bi-idhnillah. I pray. Allahumma. But, you know, it's a sense of entitlement, and it's not fair. You have sisters, like, we don't even want to open that door. Sometimes sisters, oh, I want to marry him. But what makes you think I want to marry you? You have a sense of entitlement that you feel like, oh, mashallah, he inspired me. So you want to marry me because I inspired you? Like, really? So every time a man inspires you, you want to marry them? I mean, think about the mentality. And then you subject imams, we're human beings. Yusuf alayhi salam, he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ. That if you do not turn the plot of these women away from me, أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ, I might incline, I'm a man. I may incline. وَلَا أَكُنَّ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ, and then I'll be amongst the ignorant. We're humans. You send a message and you know that it's haram. Instead of you sitting, oh, I'm just wondering, brother, are you looking for marriage? Astaghfirullah. And then we begin this conversation, and in the moment you realize that I'm interested in somebody else instead of you, then you want to take screenshots of my conversation and post it on the internet. Oh, he was talking to me and it was haram anyway.